Then when the divorce came, he wanted a divorce from her. He didn't want to give her anything. He did not want to give her anything. Nothing.
So in your mediation practice, do you mediate to save marriages?
I'm focused more now on
Words of wisdom for women, especially women, second stage of life, late 40s, 50s, to flourish after their divorce, whether they wanted it or not. How do we create the best post-divorce life?
Yeah, I get it. I tell the ladies,
welcome to her second stage. I am so excited to have this conversation with you. We met a couple of months ago. Can't believe time flies so quickly when you honored me to be talking about health and stuff on your podcast. And for everyone, I'm so excited to have this conversation with Ellie today because she's coming from entrepreneur, really in a male-dominated world, to where she is today. We both had horrible divorces, which we're going to discuss during this episode. Ellie is currently working on a book about the divorce blueprint. She's a podcast host of Storytime with Ellie, and she's a divorce mediator. Ellie, welcome. I'm doing your introduction no justice, so please tell us your journey. Journey of how you got to
thank you,
where
Hilda,
we
for
are
having
today.
me on your podcast. Appreciate it. It's always great. And we had, like you said, on my podcast, we had such a great conversation, and it was like just going, and it just flowed. And once again, thank you. And my name is Ellie, as you heard, and a little bit about my story. I am from upstate New York, born and raised, youngest of 6 children. My dad was an entrepreneur. I grew up wanting to follow his same path, where I think a lot of times, I'm not saying a lot of times we follow the mom's path, but I think I was kind of in both roles. But then I'm like, no, I'm just going to be kind of like my dad. So I kind of followed in his pursuit to some degree. I'm going to say my first business was hair salons. I opened up hair salons when I was quite young. I was like 18, 19 years old when I had my first hair salons. Fast forward, I had then gotten married. And a couple years later, I had to be like, say, 20, 21. I got married. And my ex-husband had a towing business, which I learned a lot about the towing industry through him and his family. I had gotten pregnant, had my son. 2 weeks, well, not 2 weeks, 2 years later, we ended up going through a divorce. I'm trying to fast forward this because it's a long story. We got divorced, and it was not a happy divorce, not a good divorce. No divorces are. But the experience of what I, attained and what I learned from that divorce was amazing. And to the point where I did write a book called A Divorce Blueprint from my journey on my divorce from my ex-husband. So basically what had happened in the marriage, that when I decided it just was not working. He had come home and said he wanted a divorce. He basically threw my son and I out of the house. My son wasn't even 2 years old, and I had to survive. I was young. I had a baby. I was like, okay, I need to survive. What do I do? I ended up opening up another hair salon in a short time period. Within a year, I decided to switch to the towing industry. I met a gentleman, young man, and I said I needed a manager. And he got a lot of editing to do. So he helped me get the equipment that I needed. Like, we needed a flatbed, we needed this. I financially was able to do it, so I was able to buy the equipment. Our first tow truck was just a flatbed, simple, probably I think I paid close to, I don't know, maybe 10, 12,000 for my first flatbed. The company grew after 25 years. We went from myself and my manager to 110 employees, 36 trucks. Well, now there's 5 locations. And I also, the most expensive truck in the fleet was $850,000. So yeah, I took this company from 0 to 100. And then when that happened, I decided to get out of that company, sell it, divorced, second time. And then I moved away, still best friends with my second ex-husband. And then I just decided to start over again in real estate and doing podcast, wrote my book. And you want to jump in on any of these? Because I can keep going, because it was a lot.
The thought that comes to mind was, you don't really get more masculine than tow trucking business. How did you, I'm all about women and their feminine. How did you stay in your feminine, and how did you?
It wasn't easy, and I don't want to say I don't want to say I became a man, but you really had to get a tough skin, because they would run over you. You know, they don't want to listen to a woman, and let alone in that business. So I think I really developed a tough skin and an attitude that, I mean, some of it was instilled in me, I think, at birth, because my mother was kind of strong as well. But I mean, you had to stay strong. You had to learn to, you couldn't, I mean, not that I'm saying we couldn't cry, but you just fought every day, not just with being in the man's world. I mean, the issues that I was put up against, because I was a woman in that towing industry, that a lot of them didn't like me because I was there, and they were like trying to put me out of business. I had that too, but I had to.
I can just imagine that you must have been a real threat
No,
to
not at all.
a lot of male egos. Not that we want to bash the men, but do you find business now in a male-dominated world or in an industry is different than then, like 10, 20 years ago? Did it
It's
change?
still a man-dominated world, the towing industry. There are more women towing than ever. There's a lot more. In fact, we have several women that work for us or for the towing company that are women drivers. So yeah, there's definitely more coming in than there was when I got into it. Because when I was driving, there wasn't that many girls, women driving trucks.
You for sure changed the face of towing. Let's get to the real topic around divorce, because there's so many women going through divorces, and especially I read the statistics, like divorce rates going down, and apparently the Gen Z is predicted that they will have the most stable marriages, fewer marriages, but the ones that gets married really going to be stable. But what we see the trend now is the grey divorce, women in their 50s or people in their 50s getting divorced due to, empty nest or 25 years of marriage. Or so, and after grey divorce, 60% of women are filing for that. So I must want to backtrack to your mediation practice. Is this a trend that you're seeing? Can you speak to that?
I
What you
see
see as
there's
the
a lot.
reasons for divorces later in
There's a
life?
lot. I mean, divorce is not stopping, right? It's not stopping. But what I do see a lot is what you just said. There's an influence of women like in their 40s and 50s more that are, I mean, I have groups of thousands down here in Florida. But a lot of that, I think, I'm going to, again, it's just me speaking from what I'm feeling. I think I contribute a lot to um, the independence of women. I know that sounds kind of old, but it is. I think women today are more self-sufficient. The women I deal with that are going through a lot of these divorces are women that are self-sufficient, because if they chose to leave the marriage, it's because they financially can do it. I have a small window of women that did not choose to divorce, and they're really struggling because they didn't ask for it, but they're getting thrown out there too. So we have a whole mix of different types of people. Just
Do you think it's the preparedness for a divorce, like the women who file for divorce versus the one who didn't? The one is more feeling like a victim versus the other one is, this is what I'm going for.
because it's money driven, it's independence. Women that are independent financially Most, again, this is not all. I have a few that were very independent and took it rough. I mean, took it bad to where they were like almost suicidal. And they were, so it's, there's, you can't just say there's one particular woman that just hits, but I did notice a lot of the women that are financially stable, a lot of times they are the ones that initiate the divorce, where a woman that's not financially stable will stay for the wrong reasons. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be in that marriage, but they'll stay because they can't financially make it.
So what I'm hearing is that the when you give up your financial independence is, and I've had this conversation in a financial episode with someone around, the minute you give up your financial independence, you pretty much stuck.
But I believe that women need to keep their independence. In a marriage, you're married, but whatever career you have, you're going into that marriage with, or what you get on while you're in the marriage, whether you go back to school in the marriage, a woman needs her independence for her own career, not just the mom or the wife. See, you need to have it all, and and um and I'll tell you, it's a lot of the women that give up their careers, usually, and a lot of times, not all, will end up, I don't want to say in a harder position, but will. If your marriage lasts forever, great. But I don't. I see a lot where they're breaking up, and I see a lot of this. I gave this up. I gave that up, and then when this comes and hits them, they're like, "Where do I turn? Where do I go? What happened? I gave up my career for this. I gave up my career for this. I raised my kid." You should never give up your career. Whatever licenses, whatever you have, you keep it. I think it's good mentally also for a woman who does have a family and children to get out a couple days a week. There's a lot of discrepancy on this with women, especially when they do become moms.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. But
It's the this amongst the younger girls is this trad wife, traditional wife, wanting to stay home and raise the kids. And conversations we're having is that is just not valued as the work, the productive work we're doing in a company. And it is almost so sad that kids have to grow up without a mother so that the mother can be independent and can make sure she's
well,
going to be okay if things fall apart. Is that a way to really think
right, like in other
about
words, oh, I'm going into this
things are
marriage,
gonna
no,
go
and I might get a
wrong
divorce, and I
and
might
I
be on
need
the
to
street,
prepare for
kind
that?
of thing. No, I don't. I think if everyone just keeps an independence about them and
Yeah.
understand who they are and what they have, so when you come into the marriage, you bring it together, right? If you're a nurse, your husband's an engineer, now you have children, joint. You have to do everything. It has to be worked together. Where the old way it wasn't, right? Everything was put on the woman. The woman had to raise the kids, women had to do this, but yet they'd say, well, she's lazy because she's staying home. And then as a woman, a lot of women felt like, oh my God, I don't want to be that titled as a lazy person. And it's not that they're lazy. To me, to stay home is a lot harder than to go out and work sometimes to deal with the family. But in order that I could see for today to work, really, if you're in this, you both have to be contributing to the marriage and the kids and the work. And you have to keep an independence.
Yeah. In your in your mediation practice, do you mediate to save marriages?
I'm focused more now on when it's over. Okay, so you decided to split up, you decided to, leave one another. Now what do we do?
Okay.
So I kind of come in with, that's where I come in. And I mean, there's been times where I've spoken to couples and, one or the other and point out, like this, and that. Most of the time they're done. So I try to help them not repair. I know it sounds kind of bad. I'm more like, okay, you decided, now you're moving on. I had one couple that actually did decide to say, okay, you know what? After we spoke a few times, and there's no filter with me. I'll come right out and say this, and this, and to where they actually thought about it. I'm like, hey, take a trip down memory lane. Why is this marriage really breaking up? Sometimes, One got a little squirrely, which, it depends on what's going on. If, sometimes you can make it work. Most of the time you can't.
So, are there any good divorces? I know you and I both have no. How do you get to a good divorce? Is this good people that have good divorces, or is there like a recipe? Because a couple of my friends are currently through divorces, and the
I
emotional ups
think
and
if you
downs and
actually
anger.
think
Is there a
about it,
recipe to
like,
go through a
are,
good divorce?
one spouse or the other says they want a divorce, but a lot of times it's leading up. You're leading up to it. So you're not that shocked. You may say you are, but you're not, because you're not happy. Most people were not happy in the marriage anyway. Most of the time, you'll get one that will say they were happy, and then when you question them on why they were happy,
Hmm.
or what, then they'll say, I really wasn't happy. A lot of times, um, if you actually look at why the marriage is breaking up, you understand. I'll tell you where it becomes deep: when there's money involved. When there's money involved, one person or the other is pissed off because now they got to leave the gravy train. Unfortunately, that's what I've noticed a lot of times, where okay, we're going to break up, we're leaving, we're not going to be together, but I want this, this, and this, and this. Well, you don't want that person for love. You want that person for the money. And a lot of times that's where I come in, or I help them sort that out.
So do you make sense of ridiculous expectations and telling the one
Yeah,
party
yes. Oh, well,
the
some
other
do. I'm
party
going to just tell you
deserves
the one I
more or
had recently. It
deserves
was only
less,
2 months ago.
and do they actually listen?
There was a couple. They were married for 22 years. And when he married her, she had a home in Florida, and she's had a home in their home state where they lived. When she got married, the home she had in Florida, she now made it joint with him, which she did. They had a joint. Now she brought him onto the home, and they sold the home and they bought a new one together. But the money she bought that home with originally, that was her own, now they combined it, right? So now they combined it. So now they bought the home in Florida. The home in New York, well, it was New York, but it was Pennsylvania, more Pennsylvania. She sold when they got married. So now she lived with him all these years, and they built a lot together financially. She worked, he worked. Then when the divorce came, he wanted a divorce from her. He didn't want to give her anything. He did not want to give her anything, nothing, because he wanted her just out of the house. Can I add the fact that he's 64 and he met a 30-year-old?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. So she's okay. The marriage is over. She wasn't happy, but okay, she don't care about that. But it's the fact now that that's another story. No, so now he just wants to be done with her, and that's okay, whatever. But I got involved in that one, and I said, okay, you're going to have to. It took like 5 to 6 months of arguing back and forth, and I just explained that you cannot. What she came in with, she's willing to leave, but you have to negotiate and you have to settle. I'm going to just cut it off with, she ended up with the home in Florida, and she did get enough money to buy another home in the state of Pennsylvania. And there was some other part of the settlement, but he didn't want to give her any of that. So it took about 6 to 7 months of constantly, so now they're both free. They are divorced, and he's now happily with his 30-year-old. Sorry for that, but whatever. And I kept telling him that too. I'm like, listen, just think you can run off with you would have to.
It seems like, because I also like you hear these stories where people just want out and then they don't fight for, or they don't ask for what they should get. Yeah. Do you get that? And people just, and then years later, they're still struggling to get over it because they didn't get what was rightfully theirs.
I
Okay.
had one client that left her husband. She was happy with this person she was seeing, so she wanted the divorce. And her whole thing was, I'm getting the divorce. I don't care. I'm happy. And I'm like, you're happy someplace else, but not in your pocket. So do not just settle and get out of the marriage. We spoke a couple times together, and then only to meet up with her. We're done. I signed the paperwork. We're done, complete. She left him for somebody, thinking that this person was, the God's gift. And that relationship broke up not long after. And yes, she was out on her ass. She was she had nothing. She did have a career, but she still needed the help from the ex-husband's income. But she was so happy that she was getting out of this divorce. She thought she was going to run off into the sunset. She wasn't thinking clearly. She did not listen. So yes, she had a very rough time and still does.
There's so much emotion around either party, both parties, or one party around the whole divorce. Should people just take a break and wait for that emotion, or should, and then start separating assets, or should you go, okay, we're going to get divorced, and then go in there and do all the
So
negotiations
you're
like in the
asking me if
first
someone comes to the point that
month,
they're saying, okay,
basically.
we're going to get divorced. You're saying you think should they not do anything irrational, like just
Should they wait a couple of months to calm the whole nervous system and to calm their emotions down and then start talking how we're going to separate the assets, or do we do it week one, month one, while we're still sad and disappointed and angry and so all these emotions?
so I would have to suggest to anybody, my suggestion would be talk it out. And even if you have to go through emails or text, do not verbally get on a phone and speak with them because that's where your emotions get sideways. If you have time, and that's where you come up what you said, you're thinking now, right? You're saying wait a few months. Well, if you write down, whether it be through an email or the text, you're thinking, you're using your critical thinking because you have time to think. Write your responses. Do not get on a phone. I've seen that too, where I'll tell them just write everything down, go through emails, go through a text. It's less emotion, and you're thinking. You're not shooting or knee-jerk reaction to a comment. And this is what fuels a lot of issues is the comments that we throw out of our mouths, right? Like you'll come out and say, well, what do you mean so cheap? Why you if you just take some time and set back, because once the divorce is already like getting divorced, the wait is even worse. So to help calm that down, I would suggest sending emails or text.
That's a great tip, because there's
Yeah,
nothing that
yeah,
triggers one as your soon to be ex partner. There's so many triggers around, and they just know exactly where to hurt you.
yeah.
Or
It helps. And yet, I'll tell you something else too. Now, if you want to back that into, when it comes down to a divorce or any breakup, my biggest thing is make your list. Make a list. And I don't mean like a shopping list. I mean a list of that particular person and what you
mm,
loved about that person and what you did not like about that person. That's even when you're breaking up with somebody. And is it livable? Can they change? A lot of people cannot change, and you can't expect that. But if you actually understand your own decisions and why this is happening, and that
mm,
goes for two people that are breaking up in a marriage, understand what you both are feeling. Most of the time, you don't want to be with each other anyway, or it's the money, or something's holding you together. It could be the children, the fear of actually just losing that family unit, which you'll always be a family, even in a divorce. Husband, wife, kids, you'll always be a family, just a different shape. So if you understand that
yeah.
concept as well, and understand, focus, if you have children, focus on your children, that'll help as well. Because you don't want to drag your kids through the mess of the hurt.
So, something I just want to backtrack what you were just saying that about writing down. Do you do that before you make the decision, during the transition phase of, okay, we're
You're going to do it the
separating,
whole time.
or
It's something I believe in journaling. I'm all about journaling, um, writing down, because in fact, as you're going through the divorce, as you initially say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, when you start to journal, write things down, you see things so much clearer, especially when you go over them again. And uh, and it helps you understand also on why this is going on. Like, and you got to be true. You got to be fair, right? You can't lie to yourself because you're never going to heal. But yeah, no, it's journaling. To me, that's the whole from the time you start, from the time you go
hmm.
through everything.
And I think it's also conscious process of understanding what your needs are that a lot of people in relationships don't know. And if they can write it down and see what needs went unmet, you can work on healing yourself around those. And the second thing that came to mind was you can honor the season that was. We don't have to think that it's such
Oh yeah, I
everything
know.
was
I never
doom and
say that.
gloom. A lot
Never
of people are
ever.
like, oh, I lost 20 years of my life or 10 years. Yeah. In this phase of writing it down, you can almost honor that season and you can see all the gifts that you were given with the wrong person.
No, and I don't. And I again, this is some of that comes into some of the coaching, the relationship coaching is. I tell people don't think of it as a negative, think of it as a positive, and look what you've learned. And that's another thing. If you turn it around on what you've learned, you've learned something, and there's something that's to be said about that relationship. Let's face it. If you're in the marriage for 22 years, it could not have all been bad. And if it is, something is maybe it wasn't. We focus on the bad points. We focus on the bad points for the well. That's it. And everyone's always blaming somebody else. No one ever wants to take the blame of that. Or again, if people could just say, okay, this is not working, this chapter's closed, time to move on. Kind of what my ex and I said, my second husband, because we were in business together. He was my manager, blah, blah. I remember when we hit I feel like we hit a wall. And I remember saying, I think the bus just stopped. I think we got to get off. And he's like, I think you're right. Because we were so engulfed in the business and building and just kids and just going that we just lost sight of one another, and it's funny because today he's probably one of my best friends. But I don't want to be married to him. I don't want to be married to him because we understood where we come from,
That's
how we
good.
got where we are. We could have done what we did.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you work through all of
Hmm.
the issues. So, something you mentioned earlier on children. I mean, I see so many divorced couples who the children becomes either the focus point of contention or the pawn to hurt the other person. And that hurts me so much that the children, how do you get through divorce with the children not being destroyed in the process?
People that use the children, they're they're not right. They're self-absorbed, and what they're doing is they're trying to hurt everybody around them because they're hurting, they're greedy, they're selfish, and they're using their children. That's the only thing I can say. I don't like it. Well, it's funny in my book. I keep saying I have a chapter in here that actually states, how to help you get through this and what you should be focusing on, with your children, and you have to keep them out of the equation. I had mentioned I do real estate as well, and one of the things I do with the real estate, I work with some lawyers. Look at best-selling options. I go my books, best-selling options in a divorce. This is when I co-authored in that.
Okay. I want to get to
Well,
those topics. Yeah. So let's finish the children, so you help them and you talk to them and like help the kids. Yeah.
they're both at the house.
Yeah.
I show up. They have
Mhm.
kids. They start arguing in front of the kids. They start saying, "We cannot wait for this to be done. We can't wait for you to list it. We can't wait to be out. We can't." And meanwhile, I said, "Excuse me, can you just like, you know?" They don't know. I'm a realtor, right? That's what they're thinking. I'm not. And I said, "Can we just talk in a different room?" So we did. We went to a different room. He says, "Let me tell you, I'm not going to sit here and preach to you. I'll take your listing." I said, "But you cannot fight in front of your kids." I mean, they were going at each other, how they can't stand it. They can't wait to sell the house. I said, "No, think about it. I'm not going to preach to you, but think about it. Your children were born in this house, and they were like 8 and 10." I said, "They were born in this home. Do you realize what you're doing to them? You have to keep your personal thoughts to yourself. I'll take the listing. We can do that." And this kind of just went on. And then I didn't mean to jump in their living room, but yeah, no, I told them, you have to stop. Then I hand them a book. No, it's. I'm like, read my book. No, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, people don't know how.
Well, yeah, I think you might have just saved those kids from
They're greedy.
going
People are
in a
just selfish. They
very
don't even.
painful direction. So
That's all
that's
I can say. It
awesome.
bothers me when I see that.
So tell me what lead to, well, you've got two books there. The real estate, I want to touch on that. I didn't even know you had that book. The divorce blueprint. What led to writing the divorce blueprint? What is it? Who's it for? And what wisdom, what are we going to find in the book?
The divorce blueprint is just like it's a blueprint, like it sounds, and it kind of goes from the time that you first initially said, okay, this is over. So basically, what is each chapter? It's not a big book. It's just each chapter kind of feeds you into the next. What do you do now as being a single parent? What's things you can do? Food, how to, make certain foods just for one person. It's just an all around focus on now that I chose that we're getting divorced. What do I do? And it's a very simple, book to read, but it's packed with a lot of punch.
And are you sharing just how you did it, like how, or
Yeah,
your
yes.
experience?
Yep. It's my story and several of my clients' stories. And the one thing I stressed in the book I tell people when it comes to your children, getting back onto the kids, the first husband, he was no good. Not once did my son ever know that. He was less than 2 years old when we divorced. But so now you got this 2-year-old child, less than 2, who knows nothing about mom and dad ever living together.
Yeah.
I documented the divorce, journaled when I was going through this. And I wrote everything down, what was going on, my feelings, dates, times. Once the divorce was over with, I still kept a journal on the things he did to myself and my son, like visitations. And I think my son might have been 10 or 11 years old, and I don't think I wrote in it much anymore, maybe a little. But I put it away in a safe. When my son turned, I think he might have been 15. I can't remember the age, and I'm just shooting. He had asked me what happened with, my ex. What happened to dad? Why did you two break up? His father ran his mouth a lot. I never said a word about his father, ever. So my son had no idea why, what happened. I literally went to the safe. I took this journal out and I let him read. By him reading this, he said, now I understand, it makes sense. And it took a lot for me to do that, but there was so much in there that he needed to see. And it was like a puzzle for him. It helped him so much understand, because he remembers a lot of the incidences, like his father was, oh, your mother only this and that. He remembers some of this stuff going on, but now he saw, what I did and where I was.
And was he ready at 15? 15 seems to be young, because I'm in a similar situation. My son is now 17, and I still,
If he asked, if they ask you,
keep quiet.
No, you don't. I never, even after he read, it was still, I never badmouthed his father.
Yeah.
I never said curse words I never said, oh, you're nothing. Everything was written in the proper form, proper way.
It's hard, though. It's hard, especially
but
when the other party is, like you say, mouthing off and doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, but you got to think of your children, right?
Yeah.
And if you're, and only, that would only been presented, that was not my intention. That was for my own self.
Yeah.
But when he had all these questions, and he was in therapy. My son didn't go to therapy because his father was verbally abusing him.
Wow.
And I didn't know this until, we had him in therapy. And then when I went into the therapist, it all came out.
Yeah.
And, it was the thing to do. So.
Yeah. Good job. It sounds like he's a fine young man, and you did him.
Yes, he's grown up now. He's got 3 babies. He cooks. He's an environmental engineer. He cooks. He takes care of the children. He bathes them. He's a fantastic husband.
Good job. It's like,
I don't know. So he's good. He's on his way.
Your other book around real estate, besides that, I have a keen interest in real estate and investments, and obviously, real estate and divorce is a big contentious topic. Talk to me what your other book is about, and how it's particular for divorce. Why for divorces?
Because it kind of, it's almost like a piggyback book to the other one, but only it's just strictly on how to sell your home.
Oh, how to sell your home in a divorce.
Yeah, it's basically your
name.
Yep, how to basically best-selling options in a divorce. So it's kind of what I had in the other book, only that was a little bit more on that. on what you should do and how you should sell it. And it was different,
Is that mainly
options.
for the wife or for the husband or for both?
Both for both. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've had one kind of not really that, but I had one client that actually um, the kids stayed in the home and the parents left, and the parents took turns coming back to the house. They had two apartments, and the kids stayed in the home, and the parents would, like, instead of alternate weekends, they would do week, and the
Mhm.
parents moved in and out.
That's sort of a newish model, I
Yeah.
think, because I've heard about from that here in Texas too. Does that work for the kids, or should they have two separate homes? What is the...
Well, it did. Well, this particular couple, it worked because the kids, it's kind of funny, but the kids, I mean, kids are watching TV, they're doing their thing, and okay, mom's coming, and the kids didn't have to get disrupted. The only thing they had was mom and dad going in and out.
I guess mom can be on a business trip and then dad's back on a business trip, and yeah, it doesn't upsetting their whole life. Yeah, I had a conversation with some girlfriends the other day, and we were talking about this as an option. And I guess you need to again have a civilized divorce for that to be an option.
I think I think what they felt was that both were a working couple. They both had financially were decent, the couple. And I think they felt like they were having their own privacy in their own apartments. They weren't oversized apartments, and it kind of gave them their own world. But this was kind of this was a divorce that was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. But they didn't want to bring the kids into selling a home, and now they have these little kids getting shoveled around to these small apartments.
Yeah, that's
So
really mature and responsible.
yeah,
Sounds
well,
like
like I said,
if it can work, it
yeah,
sounds like a great plan.
they were
How old are their
professional.
kids? Little or teenagers?
They were. There was a 16-year-old, a 14-year
Okay.
old, a 10-year-old, and there was a
Yeah, and it's
6-year-old.
really a
Yeah,
time where they need stability in their lives through those.
I don't know. I mean, I still speak to them every now and then. I say they were. I mean, kids are grown. The kids are grown up. But and then naturally, when the younger one, however, they got two left in the house. I don't know exactly what's going on now, but I know when they were in there, they seemed to be. They said it was working. So I'm like, "Mm."
So, after the divorce, what is your words of wisdom for women, especially women second stage of life, late 40s, 50s, to flourish after their divorce, whether they wanted it or not? How do we create the best post-divorce
I
life?
yeah, I get it. I tell the ladies, we're talking about women. It could say men too, but I'm gonna say let's say the women, right? We're women. I tell them, find yourself. Find yourself. Do things you've never could do before. Whether because a lot of times women did put that on hold, right? This is your time. You're not old. You're not a child. This is your time to be you and celebrate you. And that's what I tell women all the time. But know who you are. Um, and I also tell women, do not get involved in relationships right away. Stay single. Figure yourself out. Get to know you and love you.
That is so true because when we've been especially long in a relationship with someone, is that who am I? We've
Hmm.
completely lose who we are or who we really were. The young girl when we were young, she's still in there somewhere,
And
and
she comes out.
she comes.
She will come out. Yeah, I tell people to enjoy your life. I mean, there's people that'll get out of a relationship. They're so used to being when they start searching
Yes.
immediately and they start clinging and look, I'm like, stop. Just enjoy your life now. This was a gift. You're single again. Enjoy your life. I'm all about having girlfriends. I have tons of girlfriends. We all have girlfriends, and we're gonna call them girlfriends. I guess we can call them girlfriends. That we hang out, we do things together, and it's to the point now. A lot of these we don't even have time for a steady relationship because we're so busy going on vacations, on trips, and it's like nonstop.
That's
So now when these guys ask us out, we're like, and listen, everyone can do what they got to do. It's like, well, we got a lot going on.
yeah, that's great. It's like a lot to when you're in the first initial going through the dark tunnel of finding who am
It's
I
great.
and how the heck did I get here? That phase. some people think that's how life's going to be, and that's the forever.
Yeah, but don't be scared. Oh my God,
Yeah.
embrace it. Embrace your new freedom. I say
Mm.
embrace it. My first marriage divorce, when I can remember open up salons at the time, and I had my child would come to the salon. It was my son. I actually had a client say to me that she was going to file divorce. Says, you make life so look so easy and fun, because she ended up in a divorce. I said, I didn't mean to make it look like that, but it was, because I was my own person. I took care of myself. I took care of my son. I didn't have to have that wheel, there all the time. So you focus on yourself and your children. You're going to do great. It's great. I'm like, I mean, it's beautiful. That's all I can
Yeah.
say.
And yeah, it's again looking at the rosy future and finding yourself that you can really find to flourish
Yeah.
post a divorce. And
Yep.
I see it with, it's like I say, if you can get through the dark tunnel, the initial maybe year or whatever, there's life is really could be fun. And when everyone
Support
is,
groups. I
yeah.
recommend support groups
I
and
talk a
friends.
lot about community and sisterhood,
Hmm.
and I know you have a lot of sisters that you support them and they
Yeah.
support you. And yeah, I think the biggest lesson
It's like a
is
big slumber party.
you cannot do this. You
It's like,
can't
oh my
do
God, where are we
life
going?
in general by
Yeah.
your just on your own.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now it's like a big party. You're always, going here, going there, and
yeah,
enjoying.
yeah. I was just like starting to sort of wrap up, and as we see the numbers of older women getting divorced, I think the economy is going to change. We're going to see a whole different dating is going to be different. Like there's so many how the world will be changing with this new trend of women finding their voice and finding their freedom. It's going to be an interesting future. And
Yeah, I agree. I think it is, and it is an interesting future because. But what's funny is I think as women we seem to grow. Where I'm finding a lot of men that are older and in a divorce situation, a lot of them, you know why they're divorced. A lot of them didn't grow up, and I hate to say it's men, but when you, especially, it's worse when you're older and you meet a man that's acting like I call them men. I call them, well, excuse me, I call them a boy in a man shell. That's what I call them, and that's what as women, I'm like, oh, that's the man in the boy shell, or the boy in the man shell. I just got to reverse that. Yeah, I got that.
yeah,
Yes.
we love men, but I
Yeah.
see and I think, okay, you were like this when you were 17 and now you're 47 and you
Well,
probably
listen,
still you're
I know we're
still the
wrapping
same.
this up, but I got stories after stories. How about another friend of mine? I hope she
And we
watches.
don't want to bash men because we still love
No,
men,
but
but
this is again. There's a lot of great. Oh my God, there's a lot of great men. But this is the story that just happened 3 nights ago. 70-year-old man. He's dating my friend. She's 53 years old. He's going on a vacation to Denmark, Amsterdam. So he's packing his suitcase. He's got condoms in his suitcase. Said, why are you taking condoms in your suitcase? He said, oh, I thought it was something else I was putting in the bag. That's a 70-year-old man. Needless to say, they broke up.
ah,
Who would
yeah,
ever believe when we were kids that you would be going through this stage at our ages? That's,
right.
I think,
Yeah, and
but he's
well,
70 years old. I mean, I'm not saying
well, good for
die.
you.
We're not
Hopefully
saying
we're gonna
die,
be
but
like
I mean,
we're gonna be full of life when we're 70.
well, I hope we are. But do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
wait a
So
minute.
it never ends.
So
It
now there they
never
are.
like the nonsense never ends.
Right. That's what I mean. And it's a little disheartening, right? But it's like, so
Yeah.
that's why I come off with enjoy your life and be you and
Mm.
be you. Enjoy you because this is some of the crap that could happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, run around
And
like a
what
cat, but
what I'm hearing is make sure you're gonna be okay because a
yeah,
breakup can happen at any age. Make sure you are protected at all phases of life
right. Enjoy
and
the ride,
enjoy the
enjoy the
ride.
ride, enjoy the chapters. But the fairy tale could be there. It could, but I don't know. I'm not trying to dishearten, but it don't matter. Enjoy your moments. Enjoy
Yeah.
your moments in time when you're
Some
with whoever
fairy
you're with.
tales are 5 pages and some fairy tales are
Yeah,
maybe a
enjoy it.
hundred pages in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. We were looking for a fairy tale, so this is the episode about the fairy tales that didn't happen, but we're not giving
That could
up
be another
hope.
one. That could be another one.
Yeah, the fairy tale is on its way.
Oh my God.
Okay,
That's the
thank you.
problem. We watch too much like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and
I
stuff.
know. And we
Although,
were
I don't
since
know.
little girls, we've been fed those
Cinderella.
stories. And
Well,
all
no, really. Everyone's waiting to get captured, and
Yeah.
be saved. Don't wait to be saved.
Yeah.
Save yourself.
Yeah,
No one's throwing you that life jacket.
yeah, the fairy tales that we've been, it's a sad story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Hilda. Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, my pleasure.